Welcome to the Vol Bros. My name is Evan. This is my brother Rustin, and we are two Vol Bros who are actually bros in real life. And my oh my, the days are inching ever closer until the Tennessee Volunteers, clad in big orange, take the field in what will continue to be known as Neyland Stadium and Shields Watkins Field. That's something we hadn't even mentioned about talking about tonight, but we probably should. So we'll save that for later. We hope everybody's going to have a great evening that's joining us. We're going to preview every position on the offensive side of the ball tonight. We've got defensive position previews coming up on Sunday. That's when that's happening. So tonight we got all offense all the time. Sounds like a Josh Heupel show. People joining us already. Eric, welcome, buddy. Good to have you. He said, "What's up, Evan and Rustin, Vol Bros? I'm excited. It's 16 Peyton Manning days away until it's football time in Tennessee." That's a good point. Sean, welcome, buddy. Good to have you. He said, "Good evening. Go Big Orange." We're glad everybody's tuning in already. I've already got people on all three platforms joining us. We appreciate that. So I guess let's go ahead and say the big news. There was a merger with Pilot. There will be Pilot logos on the field. However, they are supposed to be on, I guess, the 25-yard line, opposite of the TriStars that are typically there, TriStar logos. They are supposed to be all white so that hopefully they somewhat blend in with the field. That's a big deal. The most important part of that deal was that Neyland Stadium will remain Neyland Stadium. Shields Watkins Field will remain Shields Watkins Field. It will not be, Pilot Flying J Stadium and center at Neyland Stadium. That's not going to be it. It's just Neyland Stadium, which is iconic. I'm thankful they did that. What was your take on that whole deal, Rustin?
I mean, you're about to see every school in America do the same thing. So it's a massive revenue producer. It opens the door for enormous NIL opportunities with Pilot. And at the end of the day, that's probably what's most important. I love that they did it through the angle of, Neyland Stadium, Shields Watkins Field, preserved by Pilot. Thought that was a genius move. You got, one of your largest donors, if not the largest corporate sponsor, to ante up in a huge way. And like I said, it opens the door wide open for NIL. So I thought it was a genius move on everybody's part. A simple white Pilot logo on the field. I've seen people complaining about that. Honestly, I don't care about that at all. It would not, I wouldn't pay any attention to it to begin with. But the other thing is it's just a white Pilot logo. Like, who cares? If
there's already plenty of logos around the field on the brick wall. So
it could be worse. You could be the Braves and have a massive, clashing Quikrete logo on the side of your jersey. I think this is pretty tame and really smart compared to that god awful thing.
Can you imagine the meltdown that would happen if Tennessee put a logo of some company on their jersey?
Well, the Braves one drives me nuts because it totally clashes with every uniform they have. Like, it just stands out like a sore thumb and looks awful. So, I think they did a great job with this. I thought it was a genius move all the way around.
Sean said, "Good evening, Go Big Orange." Welcome, Sean. Good to have you. Oh, wait, I already got Sean on there. Herb said, "Glad to see you guys, Go Big Orange." Welcome, Herb. Mina Laggy said, "Evening. Hey, good to see you, Mina Laggy." She said, "Obviously, huge ramifications for NIL." I totally agree. Charlie said, "Have y'all seen a dollar figure around that deal? I feel like it had to be in the 8 figures over the 20-year deal." 100% agree, Charlie.
Yeah.
They I'm sure strategically did not release a dollar amount, which is interesting because they did with the Food City Center. You got to figure, though, it had to be 8 figures. I mean, especially over 20 years. I agree with you. It had to have been. Eric said that was a good move. Tennessee partner with Flying J because they're going to throw tons of money, and it's always the name that stays the same. It's awesome that the name that stays the same. I agree, and I'm going to try to change it. Yeah, for sure. And I think Rustin made a good point. You know, the fact that they said it's preserved by that's clever. That is smart. Endears Pilot Flying J to all of Tennessee, all nation. Tyler, welcome, buddy. Good to have you, Tyler. He said Tennessee is once again a leader in college athletics under Danny White. Big win. Totally agree. Absolutely. Like he said, logo on the field is just a white logo. Not a problem. Not a problem. Sam made a good point. He said about to be seeing a lot of people. He said Kroger Field already happened. Yeah, that's true. And they changed the name, didn't they? So we were fortunate in that they didn't change the name of Neyland Stadium.
Yeah. But there is a lot of SEC schools that haven't sold the rights to their stadium or their field yet, and they're all about to do it. I'm just waiting to see if it's Nick Saban Mercedes-Benz Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium.
Yeah.
They can put a big silhouette of Nick's head on the 25-yard line.
Yeah.
Just a constant reminder to Kalen DeBoer that he's watching.
Yeah, exactly. I like Like-He's comment. I mentioned, can you imagine what would happen if they put another logo on their jersey? Well, they do have the Nike one. That's true. That's a good point. But can you imagine if there was Chick-fil-A or something like that on the side of their jersey? I don't know. Tennesseans might be okay with Chick-fil-A actually, but if it was something else,
a Pal's hot dog on the shoulder.
There you go. Now we're talking. Absolutely. That would actually probably go over well. If there was one that could go over well, it would be Pal's. Sean said we got oil money too. Yep. Caleb One Care. Hi, Rustin. Hey, good to have you, Caleb. Good to have you, buddy. Caleb, you're exactly right. Said it stinks and Lindsey Nelson's be delayed till 2026. Yeah, so Ben McKee broke the story on that yesterday. Underground utilities impacting where they can and cannot be doing stuff right now. So, gonna have to delay that one a little bit. There will be some things done 2025, other things not done until 2026. Like he said, they will never change the name from General Neyland. I agree. They definitely won't now. Sam said, who's going to have naming rights to the baseball stadium? I'm with Rustin. Let's do Pals. I love it.
I don't think Pals sells enough big chickens for that. That's going to be a pretty hefty price tag.
Imagine how packed the Pals inside Pal Stadium would be. That would be amazing. Charlie said they need to do a Buddy's barbecue and all the pilots to compete with Buc-ee's. That's actually not a bad idea. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty good idea. Let's see. So it is position preview time. We're going to start on the offensive side of the ball because we're Tennessee fans and we're good at that now. So we have arguably the most consistently highest rated offense in the country under Josh Heupel. So let's talk about it. Let's start with quarterbacks. Can we agree that is there any doubt that the depth chart is Nico, Gaston Moore, Jake Merklinger, and Navy Schuler in that order? Is there any doubt?
I think the order is Nico, Gaston Moore, Jake Merklinger. And the reason I say that is if you caught Josh Heupel's press conference today, he made a point to say, somebody asked him about the quarterbacks, and he made a point to say, we have 3 quarterbacks right now who are all performing at a really high level. He didn't talk about the room. He said, we have 3 quarterbacks. So I think Navy Schuler has been written off the page.
Yeah. He'll get maybe 3 snaps the whole season, but he'll get 3 at least probably. And that way, he can in his senior year get on the field wearing his dad's number because he's wearing his dad's number now.
Yeah.
So that'll be cool. That'll be cool. So what do you think about the quarterback room?
I was pleasantly surprised to hear him say very positive things about all 3 of them today. Because I'll be honest, that's my greatest fear. One play away from Gaston Moore being the guy. And, up to this point, they have said Merck's not ready. But apparently the offense must have dominated the scrimmage today, because he was very positive on all counts. And he even made the point that all three quarterbacks can run the offense at a championship level. That comment blew my mind. He's not one to throw around compliments. And when he's making the statement,
especially today,
when he's making the statement that he believes all three of them can play at a championship level, that was shocking.
So if you didn't see the press conference today, I'd strongly encourage you, when we're finished here, go watch it, because it was hilarious. Honestly, I was telling Rustin, we were talking about it earlier. We both saw it today, and the first 6 minutes, it was the most coach speak. Listen, Josh Heupel always has some coach speak, always. If he's ever asked about what'd you like, he'll say how we operationally handled it. Like, he's going to say that over and over and over. And man, and they were trying to ask him some questions to get a little, juicy nuggets out of him about certain guys, and he was not biting at all. It was the most bland coach speak presser literally I've ever heard him give. And I don't know who it was, but somebody, kudos to whoever did this. One of the reporters in that room, and it took Heupel back as well. And he kind of gave him a look like, are you kidding me right now? One of the reporters in the room said, can you give us specific names of specific players at specific positions that you felt like performed well today? That is literally what they said in the question. And Heupel just went, specific names of specific players at specific positions who I thought did well today. Like that. And the guy was like, yes. And he goes, okay. And so it went from this totally bland, generic, like boring press conference to, he was point blank asked, tell us names. And so the names he mentioned, the very first one was Deshaun Bishop. He said Deshaun Bishop and Peyton Lewis performed well at the running back spot. He said Dante Thornton Jr. and Squirrel White did well at wide receiver. And then he said our tight end room, all three tight ends played very well. And he said, and then, Rustin a minute ago talked about how for quarterbacks, he said all three of them, and he said we got three great ones. Well, he talked about the tight ends the same way. He said all three perform really well, and they're all three going to be on the field this year. He said we are deep at that position right now. And the only position group the whole time. And then he looked at the guy and said, thank you for that specific question. The only position group that he mentioned that was not specifically asked of him, like, because some people asked him about tight ends later on. Somebody else asked him about Deshaun Bishop before that question directly. But the only position group that he mentioned that he wasn't directly asked about it was the defensive line. He said our defensive line is deep and athletic. He was like very happy with his defensive line. And so I think that is, listen, we know, you go back and look throughout SEC championship game history over the last 10 years, the team with the best defensive line is always on the winning side of that. So I think that's huge, huge. You were going to say something there, Rustin. What were you going to say?
I think that, again, the thing that stood out the most to me, he didn't just say the quarterback room was playing well. He said, we have three quarterbacks who are executing the offense at a championship level.
Yeah, that's a big statement.
That means he thinks Gaston Moore and Jake Merklinger could come in and win championships with this offense.
Hey, Gaston can sling it, baby. Like he said, Merk Slinger, absolutely.
I've never heard him make a statement like that. And that statement in and of itself told me the offense looked really good today. Like he walked out of that, and it's probably why he was so caught up in coach speak, was he was trying to play as low and, keep everything on the down low as much as possible, because he walked off that field feeling really good.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. That's absolutely. Maybe my favorite comment of the night so far. Caleb said for the baseball stadium branding, it needs to be Salsaritas because it's the best Mexican restaurant he's ever had, and he's sad that the one near him closed. I love it. I need some daggum Salsaritas. I want to go watch Tennessee play baseball and get some Salsaritas. That is awesome. I love that. Thank you, Caleb Longcare. Totally agree, man. Although I still think I'm leaning towards Pals. Eric said, if they're going to do stadium, naming rights to the baseball stadium, they got to go Gus's world famous fried chicken. That's actually a pretty good one there. I don't think Gus's could afford it, but they'd be throwing Gus's a bone for sure. No pun intended with the chicken stuff. Let's see. When I said after we're done, go watch that, Mina Leggy said, so don't leave now. Yeah, please don't leave now. Let's see. Sam said he liked where Heupel answered that very pointed question. Yeah, he doesn't get more pointed than that, does it? Absolutely. Oh, Austin. Thank you, Austin. He said it was Eric Kane who asked it. I didn't know who asked it. I couldn't figure it out. I didn't recognize the voice. Anytime Brent Hubbs asks a question in that, you always know it's Brent Hubbs because you can just recognize his voice because it's so distinct. But Eric Kane, all right, that's cool. Yeah, Hype did not like it. Yeah, I agree. He didn't. His facial expression was hilarious when he saw that question. Mina Laggy was pumped that he mentioned squirrel. And she said, thank you, Eric, for asking that question. Mr. Osborne, welcome, buddy. Good to have you. He said, good evening, gentlemen and Vols fans. Absolutely. Go Big Orange. Absolutely. Mina Laggy said, Gaston Moore. Yeah, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Monica's with us. Welcome, Monica. Sean said, what are your thoughts on our tight end room? The end of last season where we were all concerned about it seems a long time ago now. I agree. He said, I think we got some real potential there. I agree. We're going to talk about tight ends here in just a minute. Let's see. Eric said for Coach Heupel to mention the defensive line is something considering he's an offensive quarterback guru. That's a good point. It's a fair point. He said Tennessee D-line must be elite for Coach Heupel to mention how much depth they have at that position. I agree. And I think we're all going to be pleasantly surprised at how well they perform. Okay, prime example, James Pierce Jr. was named today by ESPN as the #1 player in college football this year. That is a very nice thing to say. Let's see here. Caleb said, I think Tennessee's a ticking time bomb, and it's about to explode in a good way for us. Let's see. Eric said you can always recognize Austin Price when he asks a question in press conference. Yeah, I agree. Austin has a distinctive voice as well. I agree. Let's see here. Rustin, let's move on to wide receivers. So what's your take on the wide receivers? It's maybe this, I think we could agree, possibly the second deepest group on the team, on maybe only behind the defensive line. What's your take on the wide receivers this year?
I think for the first time since Josh Heupel's been there, we're going to see them go 6 deep. I think the first 3 are going to be Chris Brazzell, Squirrel White, Brew McCoy. But I think we're going to see a steady diet of Dante Thornton, Caleb Webb, and Chaz Nimrod. I don't think we're going to see anybody after that. I think the rest of those guys are buried on a depth chart behind, honestly, at least 3 of those guys are probably NFL players. So I think we'll go 6 deep for the first time since Josh has been there. I think those first 3 are special. I think you're going to see Squirrel White get a lot better because of lining up next to Chris Brazzell. Brazzell, all the highlight reel stuff they keep putting out on him, like that's intentional. That's for every defensive coordinator on their schedule. They want them to see what that kid can do, because it forces them to either have to play a lot of pressure man on him or go double coverage over the top. In either of those situations, that either means there's a safety one-on-one against Squirrel, or even better, an outside linebacker like a nickel who's trying to cover Squirrel. So Chris Brazzell makes Squirrel White really good, really fast.
Totally agree. And I agree with you about that first 6 group as well. I think we'll see Nathan Leacock probably in about 5 or 6 games this year. I think we'll see Mike Matthews and Braylon Staley in 4 games. The reason we mentioned this last time on the offensive line, you can play 4 games and still have a red shirt. So, give me your 4. It was UTC, Kent State, UTEP, and who was the 4th one?
Vanderbilt.
I love it. I agree totally, by the way.
They're the 4th worst team on our schedule.
Yeah, they are. You're exactly right. So I think that we will see those, which, I mean, think about what we just said. A 5-star wide receiver is going to play in 4 games in redshirt. Is probably what's going to happen. And Braylon Staley's probably every bit as good as Mike Matthews.
Yep.
And what a luxury that they don't need those guys to play right now. What a luxury. I mean, think about when Squirrel came. Squirrel played a decent amount as a freshman, a true freshman. And then he was starting the very next year. Okay.
Yeah.
Like we don't need those guys to contribute like we needed Squirrel to in the past and that kind of thing. Now, Jared asked the $1 million question, and I don't know the answer. I need to find out because we mentioned this the other night. Oh, you found it out?
Yeah, I looked it up after we talked about it the other night.
So for anybody listening tomorrow to this podcast, Jared asked a great question. He said, here's the thing. We know that I'm gonna clarify this question because bowl games do not count. The question really is, do playoff games count? That's the question. So, for example, this past year, Nico played in 4 regular season games. He preserved his red shirt. Then he started the bowl game. That did not count towards that red shirt. So he played really in 5 games, 4 in the regular season, 1 in the bowl, and he still was able to preserve his red shirt. So Jared has asked, do the bowl games count towards games played? And the answer, I guess, technically is no, bowl games do not. The real question is, do playoff games count? Rustin, what'd you find out?
Yeah, the bowl games don't count. Anybody can play in those, and it doesn't hurt the red shirt. Conference championship games and playoff games do count, and you can't play in any of them without burning the red shirt.
So even that rule right there shows even the NCAA acknowledges that the bowl games really don't mean anything.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. That's what they're really saying by making that a rule.
And
thank you for.
And you can take it a step further. Now that the playoffs are in place, is anybody even going to watch the rest of the bowls?
Yeah,
I mean,
not.
they're going to become glorified scrimmages because they're not going to matter for anything.
Absolutely. Thank you for looking that up because I was curious about that yesterday. Actually, I was thinking about it. So I appreciate that. Some of the comments coming through about the wide receivers. This is actually about defensive line. Sam made a good point. He said, I think Coach Garner has them all on a restriction of not saying anything too positive about the defensive line.
Yeah,
that's a good point. I like Austin bringing the heat with this one, man. Brazzell will dazzle. Oh, how about that? I like that now. Jeff Jarnigan, take notes from Austin. You need to say that on the PA system. That's pretty good. I like that. Mina Lackey's pumped about that wide receiver group. Absolutely. Herb, I like this, Herb. He said Brazzell's going to be a first-round pick potentially. So I think if he stays 2 years, 100%. He very well could sneak into the first round. Maybe not even sneak into the first round. If he has a breakout year this year, and then he comes back. Listen, the likelihood of Brazel coming back is high because his brother's coming. And I mean, like that'd be really cool. Or is his brother already there? I can't remember. One of his brothers either coming or he's already there. I can't remember. He was either in this recruiting class or the next one. I think it's the next one actually. And so somebody can let us know in the comments. So if it's next year, which I really think it is, because I remember talking about this now in the past.
He's class of 24. He's there now.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. So, cool thing to play with your brother. That's his brother's in the secondary. Cool thing to play with your brother. So if he comes back, he's going to be, all eyes are going to be on him next year because he's going to show out this year. And so if he returns, Brew's gone next year. And so it'll be the Chris Brazel numero uno target show. So we'll see. We'll see if he comes back. Eric said the wide receiver room is a deep position group this season, tall and length, amongst all the wide receivers. I believe this is the best wide receiver room at Tennessee since Coach Heupel took over. Oh, no doubt.
This is the best wide receiver room at Tennessee in a very long time.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking like, okay, you know what? This is a good topic. We should talk about this in a whole other episode. This is the best wide receiver room since what year? I mean, like you think about 2012, it was the year that could have been, right? We could have had Justin Hunter, Cordero Patterson, and Derrick Rogers all on the field at the same time. And unfortunately, it didn't work out. We lost one of them. But that's just 3 dudes. Like they're legit 9 deep right now. 6 comfortably. I mean, like maybe none of those guys have the same level of talent as the 3 I just mentioned. But collectively as a whole, you're that deep. I mean, when was the last time? I mean, this is a deep room. It's a very deep room. Let's see here. I mean, like you said, the squirrel is loose. Keg 2071, welcome, buddy. He said, "Go Big Orange, love the content." Hey, we appreciate that, man. Caleb said, "I think Tennessee's going to be lighting up the defense like a thunderstorm. I hope they light up the scoreboard that way." Let's see. Keg said, "When Squirrel was a freshman, they just couldn't keep him off the field, or they couldn't keep the squirrel off the field." Like that's pretty good, actually. I get it now. That's pretty good. Let's see. I think playoff games do count, but bowl games don't. You were right, Elijah. You were exactly right. Tony said, "I want to see my favorite player, Brew, get at least 60 receptions." Hey, is there any doubt on third down who the number 1 target's going to be? I mean, he will be the target on third down because he's so sure-handed.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. I think that's. I mean, I hope he gets tons of receptions too. Ooh, Sam, interesting point here, buddy. Oh, Tony let us know his brother's already on the team too. Let's see. So, Sam, I want to go back to Sam's point here. He say it's a luxury to have the room this deep in the preseason, but what about when the transfer portal opens up? We got to play them. I get that. I understand. That is a 2-way street though, because people can come in too, like Chris Brazel and Dante Thornton.
Solely my opinion, not based on anything anyone has said to me. I think Brew McCoy and Chris Brazel both are gone after this year. I think Brazel projects as a top 3 round. I think Brazel projects as a top 3 round receiver now. NIL is not going to match 3rd round NFL money.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I think the casualty is going to be Nathan Leacock. I think he's the one that probably goes somewhere else. And I think we run 6 receivers again next year. And Mike Matthews and Braylon Staley move into the 2 spots that Brazel and Brew leave. Not starting, but in the top 6 in the 2 vacant spots. So I think Kelsey Pope has probably already even told them that. Like, I think that's part of the conversation is, hey, just bide your time for a year. Your time's coming. Watch these 2 guys go ball out and make it in the league. Watch their signing bonus and how much money they're going to make. And then that's going to be you in 2 years. And They're just going to sit and bide their time and wait. Nathan Leacock is the one I think probably isn't a Vol next year.
Yeah, I'd say that's a fair assessment. I agree with you totally. Elijah said, I'll watch bowls just because I love college football. Yeah, totally understand, man. Totally understand. Let's see here. Big Orange said, hang on, Mina Likey, are you talking about Brazzle will dazzle? Is that what you're talking about? She said, name change? Big Orange said, what's up, all bros? We are Peyton Manning days away. We sure are. Been ecstatic about a sense of being World Series champs. Absolutely. Absolutely. Whoa, Mr. Jones, he said, is David Sanders going to be Evolve? I mean, I'm not David, but I'll be shocked if he's not. Rustin thinks so too.
Yeah, I think he actually has been for quite a while. I think that was a silent commit from several months ago.
Caleb said he thinks it's the deepest wide receiver room since 2016. That was easily maybe in the last before Heupel. That was the most talented team Tennessee had all the way from 2010 to 2020. That 2016 team at wide receiver, obviously Josh Malone would have been the highlighted receiver there. Jawan Jennings was on that team.
Marquez Callaway.
Yep, Marquez Callaway. So I mean, you got a couple dudes there, but I don't think they were as deep as this team was, or this team is. So that's if there was one in recent history, that would have been it, which is crazy that that's 8 years ago now. That's hard to believe.
Yeah.
Sam said, nobody said 18-year-olds are smart, but we need to play them at least a little bit to avoid transferring. I get that. Let's see. Mr. Jones said, we got so many wide receivers because we're going to score so many touchdowns, our legs will get tired. Hope so. Mr. Osborne said, I have to say this is the most excited about a season I've been in a long time, probably since 2001. Although there was a lot of excitement going into the 85 season since we had been good in 83 and 84. So I'm going to say this about what Mr. Osborne just said. I think this is the best defensive line room we've had since 2000. You can't go past 2001, but I'd say you could maybe stretch it to like 2003, maybe 2004. But I mean, this is the best room we've had on the D line since certainly 2001. I think that is a totally fair assessment. Let's see. Eric said, I think Tennessee is going to get back to the number one scoring offense in the nation this season. I agree. Jared. Jared said, funny thing is, on my college football 25 game, Nathan Leacock transferred on me. That's pretty good. Mino Leggy said, are we wide receiver you again? Yes. I agree. Because look where Mike Matthews and Braylon Staley went. You know?
I mean, look at just the last couple of years. I mean, we're getting a receiver drafted almost every single year now. Yep. And even the guys, I mean, look at Javonte Payton. He's bouncing around on NFL's practice squads, like a guy who was, overlooked at Mississippi State and then had a good year at Tennessee, but, not head turning, compared to a lot of other NFL guys. He's been all over the place, still getting to play. Velus Jones is still playing. There's guys that are every year showing up and finding ways into the league.
Eric said David Sanders is all of all. I think he has been for a month or two silently. You're probably right. Absolutely. Sam said we have a lot of young offensive line talent, and we are bringing in a lot more with this year's recruiting class. Keeping these guys in development of a young center is very important. Totally agree. 100% agree. This year's offensive. Go ahead.
It's not hard to keep O linemen. They know they're developmental. They're not stupid. They line up every day and look at dudes across from them that have been in strength programs for 4 years, and they're like, I don't look like him. So they understand that they're developmental, and they also understand there's not a whole lot of NIL money out there for O linemen. So, it's a lot easier to keep them happy and keep them moving forward. because they understand the grass isn't greener on the offensive line.
You're exactly right. Caleb said, I'm not trying to turn people away, but I think freshmen should play the lower school and then transfer up sophomore year. Rustin 100% agrees with that philosophy.
Yep.
Whoa, this may be my favorite comment ever. Me likey said, me likey. A whole new world, man. That's what I'm talking about. Herb said, we're going to see tight end. Are we going to see tight ends do the Princeton Fant plays where they're running the ball? Those plays of offense seem to keep the defenses guessing. I would not be shocked if we see the Princeton Fant shovel pass up the middle. We saw that almost every time on 2-point conversions. I would not be shocked if we see that with this group. Let's see. Tony says this may be the best defensive line we had as far as depth goes in a long time. Totally agree. Eric said Juwan Jennings still playing for San Francisco 49ers. Good Tennessee wide receiver. No doubt about it. Should have been Super Bowl MVP this last year.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Sam said we're going to lose a lot of guys off this defense going into next year. On defensive line, we sure are. Absolutely. Linebacker, the only guy we're definitely losing is Keenan Peely. Secondary depends on how well they play. If some of them, earn themselves a draft spot, we may not lose a ton in the secondary.
Even if we lose 4 or 5 guys on the defensive line, that D line is so deep and so talented. We're not going to feel it. Like, it's just next man up.
Well, especially with how they're recruiting on the defensive line right now as well. Sam said, heard someone throwing around $3 million number for David Sanders. Wow.
I would highly question that. Let's put that in perspective. Bryce Young's senior year at Alabama, he got $1 million. So I would have a very hard time believing that a high school offensive lineman is getting 3 times that amount.
Mr. Jones said Josh Dobbs is the 49ers backup. He sure is. Had a touchdown the other day. Eric said Keenan Peely is definitely gone. He's as old as I am. He legit is old. He's 26, maybe 27 now.
There's got to be an appeal somewhere. Find one more year.
He is at least 26 years old. I think he actually might be 27. Somebody can look that up for us. That'd be great. So Juwan Jennings has Josh Dobbs again too. Cue Celine Dion. Tony said, I'm hoping Cam Seldon is full go by Oklahoma game, if not before. All right, so that's a good segue. Sam said Josh Petty's getting $800,000 per year at Georgia Tech. Let's see. Eric said, well, Keenan ain't old as me. I'm 37. So that was a good segue from Tony into running backs. Mr. Osborne said he's got socks 26 years old somewhere. The running backs room, in my humble opinion, the most underrated room on this roster. Rustin, what do you think about the running backs room?
I thought some of Josh Heupel's comments today were interesting. It sounds like Khalifa Keith's the odd man out.
Yep, sure does.
It sounds like Peyton Lewis has moved ahead of him on the depth chart. He continues every press conference when he's asked about practice, when he's asked about scrimmage. Deshaun Bishop is almost always the first name out of his mouth. So I think you got Dylan Sampson. They're very high on Deshaun Bishop. If Cam Seldon can get back fairly soon, it's probably going to be a 3-dog race. And if they need a 4th, they'll go to Peyton Lewis. But I think if they can redshirt Peyton and just run 3, they'll be happy with that.
100% agree. You think Peyton Lewis is another 4 games guy?
If they can afford it, yeah. I mean, it's hard, and SEC running backs get banged up. But if they can stick to 3, I think they will.
I'll tell you what, I would not be shocked to see Peyton Lewis and Khalifa Keith play the entire second half against UTC. I would not be shocked if that happens.
Yeah.
I think you made a good point about Deshaun Bishop with Cam Seldon. I agree with I think it was Tony who said we hope he's back by. Oh yeah, it was Tony by Oklahoma. I mean, literally, that's the key game. If he can be back full go by then, Tennessee's going to be just fine. Because Deshaun Bishop and Dylan Sampson, you can handle UTC, NC State, and Kent State with those two guys as your main ball carriers. I'll tell you what, one thing that this was unprompted today about Deshaun Bishop. When Heupel was asked how he was asked specifically about Deshaun Bishop and his progress from scrimmage 1 to scrimmage 2. And Heupel said, well, I mean, I didn't see any like glaring differences between scrimmage 1 and scrimmage 2. He said, we're just really confident and comfortable with Deshaun right now in how he's playing without the ball in his hands. He said, his pass blocking, and he starts naming off the things that they're confident. Listen, if they're confident with how he's pass blocking, that's going to get him on the field. Like that's what's going to get him, snaps back there. Because you got to protect Nico. And so if they're confident with how he's doing that, then that is big time news for Tennessee fans. That is good stuff. Deshaun Bishop, I don't know this to be factual, but I'm about 90% confident that it's accurate. So somebody can go back and look through their archives for the last 24 months or probably 18 months. But yesterday, or maybe the day before, Deshaun Bishop was put before the media. And I think that was the first time since he became a Vol that he had a presser after a practice and was put before the media. If you haven't watched it, go check it out. Such an enjoyable guy to listen to. Such a great interview. You could tell that he genuinely was thrilled to be a Tennessee Volunteer. I mean, it was refreshing. That's maybe the best word to use. It was absolutely refreshing to hear his outlook, to hear his determination. He was having so much fun getting to talk to the media. He thought that you could tell he thought that was really cool. And he was like trying to hide his smile. Like he was super excited to be doing it. It was a breath of fresh air, man. So if you get a chance after we're done, go watch Heupel's presser from today, and then go watch Deshaun Bishop from, I think it was 2 days ago. You'll love the kid even more. I mean, it was great. It was great. Some other comments that, so anyway, back to the running back room. I agree with Rustin. Based on what we heard today, it sounds like the depth chart now is Dylan Sampson, Deshaun Bishop, Cam Seldon when he returns, Peyton Lewis, Khalifa Keith. That's what it sounds like. Underrated room. Totally underrated. And I can't wait for them to run all over people this year. I'm very excited about that. Some of the comments coming through about Josh Petty getting money down at Georgia Tech. NIL is just different than it was a few years ago, to be fair. It is. That's true. But there's still, probably limits to it.
All right. So I lived in Atlanta for 6 years. I can tell you that Georgia Tech's NIL budget for football can't cover $800,000 a year for one player. So I'm going to give you a trail that you can go follow, and you can figure out for yourself if you really think Josh Petty's going to get $800,000 a year. He has been promised, he hasn't received it, he has been promised an NIL deal with Power Up Sports. I would encourage any of you who are just bored, go look up the Power Up Sports website and tell me if it looks like a group that could provide an $800,000 a year NIL program. You might get Jaden Rashada vibes when you're done. So just know that there's a lot of phonies out there who pretend to be something they're not in the NIL world. And unfortunately, sometimes families fall prey to that. So I'll just leave it at that. And I hope the young man, he's from Alpha. Actually, he was in the school I ran in Atlanta. He was in our region. He was at Fellowship Christian. I hope it pans out and he gets what they have promised him. But don't be shocked if he's not on the market in a year.
Let's see. Rebecca, welcome, Rebecca. Good to have you. She said Keenan is 26. Keenan Peely's 26 years old. Big Orange said Keenan was born in 98. And he'll turn 26 this year. That's insane. Yep. Let's see. Caleb Longcare said, we're so deep at running back, it's not going to matter who we run. Everybody available. Let's play bully ball. Let's see here. Eric said, I know Deshaun is good, but I don't see him being as good as Cam Seldon. Well, I'd get that, and I understand that. I think the problem right now is how long is it going to take Cam Seldon to get back in game shape after coming off an injury? I think that would be why he has been moved ahead of him on the depth chart.
I tell you, again, those of us who watched Deshaun Bishop live in high school, that dude's different. Like when the lights come on, he performs. He is a big time gamer. So you'll see it live against UTC. Like it's just different. And you can't go by, what you see in video and practice and things like that. Like he's just different when it counts.
Well, and to that point, I invite everybody to hearken back to April of 2023. When they started spring practice in April, and Cam Seldon and Deshaun Bishop were both early enrollees. And the first people that everybody was talking about was Deshaun Bishop. Heupel in the very first press conference that season or that spring, he mentioned Deshaun Bishop by name. Then they started asking defensive players, who's impressing you? And they all said Deshaun Bishop. Like the dude, he's got something. I'm looking forward to seeing him. I'm looking forward to seeing him on the field. Mississippi Vol, welcome, buddy. He said, speaking of the defensive line, the 2005 unit was very good. Paris Harrelson, Justin Harrell, Jesse Mahalona, and Jason Hall. Too bad our offense took a vacation that year. Yeah, for real. But that's a good point. That was a great point.
But what's crazy is, as good as those four guys were, and you're talking about four NFL guys there, we've got 12 of those on this roster. I mean, there is legitimately 12 NFL players in our defensive line room right now. That's crazy.
It's going to be fun to watch. That's for sure. And it's going to be a nightmare for opposing offensive lines and quarterbacks. Because when do you get a breather? Like, some people they may run in another package and their two best dudes run off the field, and you're like, okay, well, when we get a little bit of a break, this snap, they'll come back on the field next snap, but we get one snap off. You don't get that with Tennessee's defensive line. Let's see. Mr. Jones said, how much do you think Nico will be running this year? I mean, I think he's going to be running, but I think that they're going to have to tell him, you have to get down. You have to get down.
I mean, the reality is Gaston runs better than people realize. He's pretty good with his feet. Merck's very good with his feet. So I think that's just, I think Joe wasn't great with his feet. So I think we kind of took that out of the offense a little bit. But with these three guys, it's back in for sure.
Like he said, it's going to be a fun year. I agree. Absolutely. Zach, welcome, buddy. Zach said he's in a hotel room, but he wanted to hop on and say hi. We're glad you did, buddy. Hope you're having a good trip. Let's see. Mr. Jones said, put an O lineman at running back. I don't think we'll need it. Austin said, I'm really worried about a running back's room ability to pass block. We have younger guys who haven't proved it, and another in Sampson that needs to step it up. Now, I think
So
that's a legit concern, but I
yeah,
think what the coaches are saying is encouraging.
I think that's true for most of the guys in the running back room. Again, though, and Heupel actually said it in his press conference today. He said Deshaun Bishop's doing a great job in pass pro. And he brought that up on his own. Like that wasn't
Right.
it wasn't something anybody asked. He just made a point to say Deshaun Bishop's doing a really good job in pass protection. So hopefully Dylan Sampson has gotten better because Lord knows he wasn't good at it. So hopefully he's gotten better. And if so, at least those two guys are doing well. That's really all you need. You can keep the ones who aren't off the field in definite pass situations. But if you got two running backs that can pass pro, that's sufficient.
Mina Lackey has dishing out great advice here. She said, smash that like button. I agree. I think that'd be really good. Tony is exactly right. He said Deshaun Bishop's a Tennessee kid. It means more to home state kids. I think that's very fair. Absolutely. Zach asked a good question. He said, what happened to Cam Seldon? So Cam actually, okay, the official word was a shoulder injury. That's the official word. Back in spring camp, he had a shoulder injury. Now, I don't know what that would involve. You would think a collarbone would have been totally healed up by now. So I doubt it was a collarbone. But the official injury report that was sent to the media was a shoulder injury. Since he is still trying to get back from it, maybe he had some type of surgery. I don't know. But it was a shoulder. And so hopefully, he gets back soon. Hopefully. Mr. Jones, when you were talking about Jaden Rashada, he said Billy Napier. Yep. Sam said, do you think Dylan Sampson will be durable enough to handle the load or season? I believe we need a few of these bigger backs to help spread the load. Well, they definitely got to spread it out because you can't survive an SEC schedule with one dude. And I think that's a good point you just made there.
I think what's been interesting,
guys.
I think what's been interesting in the scrimmages is the coaching staff has been treating the scrimmages almost like an NFL preseason. Like there's certain days they hold out certain guys and they're like, okay, today we're only working on this. We don't need to see these three. We know they can do it. Let's see if the next guy can do it. So like the first scrimmage, 3 of the 5 starting offensive linemen just didn't play. And they weren't injured. They just didn't play them. They just wanted to see what the next guys would do. Dylan Sampson didn't play in the first scrimmage. It wasn't because he was banged up. They just knew he knew what to do and didn't need to see him. So I think they've been really smart about that. I think they realize that, if you make a deep postseason run, you could play 16 or 17 games. So it ends up being like an NFL schedule. So they're treating the preseason like an NFL preseason.
Well, and Josh Heupel even kind of mentioned that today too in his press conference. He said, somebody had asked him a question about how do you balance the physicality of practice knowing that you have a long season coming up. And he said, well, I mean, here's the thing. You have to have physicality. You have to have contact in practice because you got to practice that. But at the same time, what's coming and they have to be fresh for what's coming. And so, I mean, he was talking, and that was literally how he answered it. So he basically didn't answer the question, which he was doing a very good job of today. He didn't answer anything except the one where they were like, can you give us specific names? But on that one, even that one, he named some guys that he had already been asked about previously. Let's see. Caleb said, I agree with Rustin. Deshaun's a game day player. Zach said he loves the football talk. It's getting him hyped up. Mr. Jones said, will James Pierce break the all-time sack record? I don't think so. No.
He would have to really have some huge nights, and it's going to be hard because they rotate so many guys.
Yeah. Well, and think about that. I mean, Derek Barnett, he started for 3 straight seasons. James Pierce Jr. will have only started for 2 because he's gone after that. Like, there is no doubt about it. He is leaving to the NFL after this season. So, I mean, I don't think he has enough time, enough games, enough snaps to break it. Let's see. Well, I just said, how many sacks and tackles for loss do you think the defensive line gets this season? Man, I don't know. That'll be fun to talk about on Sunday, though. You got to ask that again on Sunday because we're going to do defensive position previews on Sunday. Let's see. Herb said, with David Sanders potentially committing Saturday with Faison committed, do you think more big potential big time O-line commit? Oh, yeah. I mean, they know. They know who's committed. They want to play with the best guys, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good question. Mississippi Vol said, I remember us being ranked number 3 going into that season. We ended up going 5-6. The highlight of that year was the Monday night LSU game in Baton Rouge. You talking about 04? The Gerald Riggs touchdown at the end of the game? Is that what? Am I misremembering or? I don't know. Tell me what year, Mississippi Vol. Tell me what year. Let's see. Ooh, yeah, Sam. Sam said, can't wait to see the Rabbits package with Pearson Josephs. I thought Joseph's press conference the other day was very intriguing. He straight up admitted that he got jealous last year when he saw James Pierce Jr. succeeding so much, and he realized I have to put in the work that he did to do that too. And he said, I've done that this offseason. So I'm really excited to see him because if everybody remembers, he's the guy in his true freshman year, that we were all like, dude, that dude's the bomb. He 2 sacks off of stunts. One was in that 2022 LSU game. He came untouched and just blew up Jaden Daniels. I'm excited about that too. Totally agree. Mr. Jones said, is he blocking James Pierce bull rushing at full speed?
No one is.
Zach said, who rushes for 1,000 yards?
I don't see that happening.
Yeah,
because there's not enough balls to go around.
Yeah.
When you've got you can go 6 deep at wide receiver and they all need touches. Heupel's raving about 3 separate tight ends on a daily basis. That's 9. Now, if you've got 3 running backs playing, that's 12. And you got a quarterback that's a dual threat, that's 13. So when you got 13 different guys that need touches on a consistent basis, nobody's going to put up video game numbers.
Yeah, that's right. That's the reality of it. Like, you got too many guys that you have to get the ball in their hands, and you only have a certain amount of snaps. You're exactly right. That's a good problem to have, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a good. You want to have that problem.
Opposing defensive coordinators don't want to hear that statement. They don't want to hear that there's 13 different guys that need touches. That's terrifying.
Tony said this. Okay, this may be my new favorite interaction of the night. Tony said, if we have a couple running backs who get injured, he said, hope we don't. But if it happened, I'd like to see a package for Boo Carter only if needed. I get that. That's a good idea. But I love Zach replied, knock on wood, Tony. I like that. Yeah, we don't want to see them get injured because, listen, we got 5 dudes back there. I mean, seriously, we got 5 dudes back there. And I can't wait for people to see him run the ball. I'm excited to see him run the ball. It's going to be fun. Mr. Jones said, even if our secondary is just average, we'll be a top 10 team all year. I agree with that. And based on the last couple, scrimmages and fall camp and stuff like that, the secondary has performed very well. And so you got to think they're going to be even better than average. You got to like Tennessee's chances this season. Mississippi Vol said 2005 was the year he was talking about. That's what I'm talking about. I was 1 year off. Caleb said, well, and also Derek Burnett didn't get to sub out as often as James Pierce does. That's exactly right. Rustin was alluding to that. Like he said, shoulder injury is the official word. Appendix mishap. That was a reference to Billy Amick from this baseball season. They said, what would they call a vasectomy? Roller coaster injury. So if anybody doesn't know what Mina Lackey is referring to there, that is a deep cut Volbros reference. No pun intended, deep cut, no pun intended. But that goes back to this March and then April after a trip to Dollywood. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Zach said, so was I the only person who saw the name Pilot and thought it was a mini series? That's pretty good, Zach. I wasn't confused with a television show. But I get where you could be. Caleb Longcare said, cheated. I love how everybody's wanting to talk about the defensive line. It's the offense show.
That's Sunday. We'll get
Yeah,
there.
we're going to talk about it Sunday. Absolutely. Mr. Jones said, coach is on the sideline trying to find ways to stop our offensive rush for 1,000 yards. There you go. There we go. Mississippi all said in 2004 we had freshman Eric Ainge and Brent Schaefer. Oh yeah, played Auburn in the SEC championship, throttled Texas A&M in the Cotton Bowl. That's why I thought 2005 would be a big year for us. Yep, I vividly remember the Eric Ainge Brent Schaefer rotation. Oh man, that was the first big quarterback controversy at Tennessee for a while. Yep. Sam said, Rustin, do you think Coach Barnes would be interested in the kid from North Carolina that wants to play football and basketball?
Is that Kendre Henderson or Kendre Harrison? If it is, I doubt it. They don't really do that. Some schools still do it. Heupel and Barnes haven't really showed a propensity to do that. And there's been kids that they've both signed who have kind of been rumored that they were going to be dual sport, and then it never happened. So I don't see them ever really doing that. But if you're talking about Kendre Harrison, it's just so hard because they don't get done with football now until, if you go deep in the postseason, you miss the entire first semester of basketball easily, and maybe even the first 2 weeks of January. So I don't see anybody doing that moving forward much. I think North Carolina offered them to do that, or offered Harrison to do that, but North Carolina is not worried about what happens in January and December.
For football.
Right. They know they're done by that point.
So Herb asked a really good question. Herb, I'm going to save your question for the end of the show. We're going to end the show with your question because that's a really good question. Zach said, who will be Nico's first touchdown pass?
Brazel.
I was going to say the same thing. Literally, that's it. I think that's it.
It might be a play action pass on play one against UTC, honestly. It might be from the 25-yard line after a touchback, and they go play action, and Brazel's gone down the sideline, and UTC just stands there and watches him go.
Yeah, totally agree. Let's see. Mississippi Vol said our secondary, especially safety position, I think we should be pretty good at corner.
Sunday.
Yeah, we'll talk about Sunday. Let's see. Caleb Longcare said we're going to be turning the other defenses' heads at how much speed we have. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yep.
Tony, I think, hit the nail on the head. I think he is 100% accurate with this comment. He said, as a team,
yep,
we should rush for over 2,000 yards, but don't expect anyone to get 1,000 yards. Maybe if we make the playoffs and play a couple games. I think that's exactly right. Yep. I think you're going to end up seeing Dylan Sampson with like 850, 900 yards, somewhere around in there. If we make the playoffs and play a couple games, then yeah, he could cross 1,000. But I think Tony's exactly right, because you got to consider you've got Dylan, Deshaun Bishop, and Cam Seldon, who are going to get the vast majority of the carries. But then if you add in Nico's rushing yards as well,
yeah,
between the four of them, yes, we should cross over 2,000. I totally agree. I think that's a 100% accurate comment. Let's see. Mississippi Vol said, sorry for discussing 2004, 2005, the defense, but as far as the offense, I'm really looking forward to seeing what Deshaun can do this year in the backfield. Oh, totally agree. 100%. Man, you got to apologize. You can talk about it all you want. It's why we're here. Mr. Jones
Sunday.
Yeah. Mr. Jones said he thinks Brew McCoy will be the first touchdown pass. Like he said the same thing. Zach said, who do you want to see that's not in a starting role get playing time?
Coaches keep raving about Dante Thornton. Apparently he's had a really good camp.
Man, that's a tough one. I kind of want to see. I mean, I'd like to see Mike Matthews, but we're not. So, I mean, I, they keep talking highly of Chaz Nimrod. I'd like to see him get out there too and see what he does.
Yeah.
TK said, "Have y'all seen Bruce's body transformation?" Yeah,
Which was hard to do because he was already basically a statue. Like it was hard to get much more physical than what he was, but somehow he did.
Mr. Jones said, "When we make the playoffs, not if." Caleb said, "I think Nico will go over 4,500 passing yards." That's a lot, but I hope he does. But that's a lot. Zach said Nico gets 2,000 rushing yards.
He would need some. He would need some postseason games because that many yards, 4,500 is an average of 375 a game. In the regular season, that's a lot.
Mr. Jones said he'll pass that in game 1. Yeah. Let's see. Sam said, "Can't wait to see how Coach Heupel uses the new communication rules." Yep. So that's been a hot topic of conversation in the press conferences. He said maybe stay in the huddle until the 15-second mark and break out into something fast. So they are still going. Their goal is still 8 seconds. However, what you just said, I think, is exactly what we'll see a whole lot on third down. Because we've seen in the past, they'll rush up to the line just so that the defense cannot sub. They'll see them line up. Then they'll look over at the sideline, get a play call, and then do that. We saw that even more last year than we did in the previous years. I think on third down is when you're going to see them do that a lot, and they're really going to take advantage of that in-ear communication at that point. Eric said he thinks Dylan's going to explode at running back this season. Tony said, "Will we have a 1,000-yard receiver? Maybe. I'm not sure."
I think that's more likely than a 1,000-yard rusher.
I'd say if I could predict, if I say we're going to have one, I'm going to say Chris Brazzell, because if y'all remember Rustin mentioned Javonte Payton earlier. So Javonte Payton had a deep touchdown pass in like the first 3 games of the season, his first year. Or his only year. And I could see that happening with Chris Brazzell. He's going to be the deep threat guy. And so if there's, and Squirrel, I mean, Squirrel's obviously a deep threat, but if there was a guy that could get over 1,000, I'm going to say it's Chris Brazzell. All right. So Tony said, well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he was talking about the 1,000-yard receiver or what there. But that was a good question, Tony. All right, so we've gotten to quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs. Let's do tight ends. Very interesting tight end room. What do you think about the tight end position group this year?
I think the most interesting thing Heupel said in that interview today was he's really happy with all 3 tight ends.
Yep.
I'm fascinated to see how they do that, because with all those guys at wide receiver, I just don't see how 3 tight ends are going to get enough touches to even be part of the game plan. But he made a point to say all 3. So clearly Miles Kitselman is still in the mix, and yep. I'll be fascinated to see how they work them. I just don't know how you're going to get them all in.
He also said today, he said, in the past, we've been a little hampered at that position, but we got a really deep room there now with all 3 guys. So he's even saying essentially we couldn't do everything we wanted to do with the tight end in the past, but we can now. That's going to be fascinating to see. There was a highlight that was released on Twitter, on the Tennessee Twitter account, from the last, or no, it wasn't a scrimmage. It was a couple days after the last scrimmage. And it was a pass over the middle to Miles Kitselman. So, I think we'll see. And then we also saw from the scrimmage a touchdown pass to Davis. So, they're getting him out there, It's going to be, I agree with you, it's going to be fascinating to see how they use all 3 of those guys, because they're talking about all 3. So, interesting. Zach said he can have a tight end if he works out. Go use that fitness room at the hotel, Zach. Let's see. Herb said tight ends out of nowhere to keep defenses honest. For sure, I think that's what we're going to see. A little seam route up the middle.
I don't think I'm not saying they're not going to be good. What I'm saying is I just don't know how you're going to get all three of them in. Like it just,
sure.
It's going to be interesting.
You'll probably see, I mean, no joke, we'll probably see a different tight end every possession. Like they'll just roll out a new guy. And I think that's very likely to happen. Tony said Davis is the most athletic. Kitzelman might be the best overall of the three. Zach said, who do we have at tight end? Well, so the guys that we just mentioned, the only one we actually haven't talked about is Holden Stays. Holden Stays transferred from Notre Dame this year, and it was just assumed that he was the dude, right? Like he was going to be the guy. But Davis, who is now a true sophomore, and Kitzelman, who transferred from Alabama, they're both. I mean, they're making it tough to decide who gets on the field. So I mean, Heupel said today, competition is that coach in that room's best friend. Well, that's what's happening. Mississippi Vol said, now that's a rotation I'm anxious to see. It sounds as though Mr. Kitzelman has very good hands in addition to being an excellent blocker. Throwing on Ethan Davis's Holden Stays pass catching skills. That's a tough room, man. It's a tough room to beat right there. I'm excited about it. That's the thing. We've been talking about skill positions, and we got so many dudes at the skill positions that we can get the ball to. Has to be exciting. Oh yeah, I said sophomore. Ethan Davis is a redshirt freshman because he didn't play last year, so he did have a redshirt year last year. I was just thinking it was a second year. That was my bad. Yeah, he didn't step on the field a single time last year because he was hurt. So, yes, he is a redshirt freshman. Zach said Bruce a wide receiver tight end, in my opinion. I mean, that's fair. Yeah. I mean, he's bigger than Ethan Davis. That's for sure. Like, dude's stout, man. He's stout. So that leaves one position group left on the offensive side of the ball that we have not yet talked about. Honestly, this might be the most veteran group on the whole. Well, definitely on the offensive side of the ball. I don't think we can say that at least the same, but not as more veteran than the defensive line. What do you think about the offensive line, Rustin?
I like that they held 3 of the 5 starters out of the first scrimmage. They wanted to force those other guys to get quality reps. I'm not worried about the offensive line, honestly. I think they've done a good job developing. I think they've done a good job recruiting. When you hear Glenn Ellerbe talk about that group, he's very positive. He's very comfortable. And I think the biggest thing, and probably the thing people are overlooking, the most difficult assignment on their entire schedule are the guys they face every day of the week. There's not a defensive line on that entire schedule that's as good as the guys they're facing every single day. And I think that's going to pay huge dividends. Every coach's dream is to make practice so hard that the game feels easy. That's our offensive line. Every game is going to feel easy to them because they're not lining up across from Omar Norman Lott and Amari Thomas and James Pierce and Joshua Josephs. And, they're not watching the onslaught of NFL defensive linemen just coming at them in waves. The game's going to feel easy. And I think that's going to be the biggest positive for this group is nothing's going to seem hard to them.
I think that might be the single best comment of this whole show. You're exactly right. Mr. Jones agrees with you. He said, iron sharpens iron. I mean, you're exactly right. They will not face another team this year that is better than who they've seen in practice. I think that is a fantastic point. They certainly, you might can make the case with some teams like, well, the first 4 might be as good as who they've seen in practice. but number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, they're not going to be as good
13,
as the
14, 15, 16. I mean,
yeah,
it's insane.
yeah. So nobody is going to be as deep and as overall talented as the guys that they're having to go up against every single day in practice. You're exactly right. Sean said not even Georgia's defensive line is as strong. If you listen to Kirby's comments the other day,
They've got a few NFL guys, but they don't have anywhere near the depth. And I mean, I don't feel like I'm exaggerating when I say I believe we have the best defensive line in the entire country. And we definitely have the deepest defensive line in the entire country.
yeah, I don't think there's any argument. Like, if people are being objective, I don't think there's any argument from anybody who could look at the country as a whole and say anybody has a deeper defensive line as Tennessee. You might make the case that some people may have a more talented first four, but even that is pushing it, because definitely no. I mean, you got James Pierce Jr., who was just ranked the number one player in the country.
Can anybody in America say that their front four are all getting drafted in the NFL draft this year? Tennessee can.
Yeah, that's true. So I mean, and how nice is it to be talking about a group like that as a Tennessee fan for the first time in forever, you know? Speaking of the tight ends, Sam said, can you imagine 2 tight ends with Brew also on the field? Yeah, talk about a nightmare mismatch for the defense.
That's definitely, I'm sure there's going to be some kind of short yardage package that has even maybe all 3 tight ends with Brew as a single split by himself. So you bring all 3 tight ends in, go double tight plus an up back, 1 running back, and then have Brew out by himself one-on-one with somebody. Pick your poison.
Yep. Zach said, preach, Russ, preach. Mr. Jones said, our defense won't face a better offense either. I mean, that's very possible. I mean,
yep.
Very possible. They are poised to potentially be the best offense in the country. So I'll say that, and I'll say this about the offensive line, and then we're going to go back to the question from earlier that I think it was Herb's question. I think Joey Halsley said it better than anybody about this offensive line. The person, well, and the team is so fortunate that Nico's first year as a starter gets to be behind this offensive line. He is so fortunate, because I think I would be curious to know. I think it is the second, maybe the third most veteran offensive line in the SEC. When you look at the offensive line, center, right guard, and right tackle are all 6th-year dudes. Legit, is there anybody else who could say that? Like, they might be the most veteran group in the SEC. Left tackle is a 5-star left tackle. Left guard is the one that no one knows for sure yet. I tend to agree with you now. It's probably going to be Andre Carrick, but
except he can't seem to stay healthy. I think Jackson Lampley's probably going to win the job because Carrick just can't stay healthy. He keeps missing days, banged up. And, there's guys like that. There's guys that are high potential, but they just can't ever seem to get healthy. And I'm starting to wonder if Andre Carrick is one of those guys. He missed, I think, the last 2 practices because they said he was dinged up again.
Well, and I'll say this because I did this for the wide receiver, so I'm gonna do it again now, and I think I can pinpoint this year with this one. For the wide receivers, I asked the question: this is the best, or this is the deepest wide receiver group since when? And honestly, I don't remember a win for this. Like we've always been wide receiver. We've always had 3 or 4 really good wide receivers. When have we had 9? I mean, like this is a different scenario, but for the offensive line, I think we can probably all agree on exactly the answer to this. When was the last time the offensive line is poised to be this good? And I think the answer is 2012. That 2012 offensive line, you had Tiny Richardson and Jawan James at the tackles. The whole offensive line was 3rd and 4th year dudes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like it was. You had multiple NFL guys on that offensive line. I think no doubt about it, that was the best offensive line we've had until this year. Like how far back can we go to say we had an offensive line this good? It was 2012. And then obviously before that, there were tons and tons and tons of offensive lines that were just unbelievably good, even better than 2012. But this is the best offensive.
Fulmer had offensive lines that all 5 were in the NFL every year. I mean, they were ridiculous.
Exactly. Mr. Osborne said 1989 offensive line, the Tennessee Valley Authority. Absolutely. Zach said he's got to get up at 6 o'clock, so he's heading to bed. Love the show. I appreciate you, Zach. Hope you have a great time, man. He's on a trip, so out of town. So, I mean, obviously, prior to like Rustin said, in the Fulmer years, like Mr. Osborne said, offensive line was Tennessee was the place. Since Fulmer has gone, we've had one good offensive line, really, that was elite, and that was in 2012. This could be another year where we have that similar type thing because they're just so veteran there. If you hear Cole Kubelik talk about Cooper Mays, he says, Cooper Mays is probably the best center in the SEC this year, and Tennessee's offensive line may be the 2nd or 3rd best offensive line in the SEC behind LSU. And so you got to be excited for this offensive line. And we're fortunate that this is the offensive line that Nico gets to play behind. The only thing is, can they stay injury free? Man, I hope so. I really hope so. The good news is, and this will be the last thing I say about the offensive line, the good news is I think that our recruiting class this year on the offensive line may be the most underrated part of our recruiting class this year, because we had 3 to 4 years from now, we're going to look back at this offensive line class and be like, those were some dudes. And I'm excited to see what they do in a few years. And we had some other comments come through. Sam said, Coach Banks said something complimentary about the defensive line. Coach Carter said, I didn't say that. That's pretty good. Zach asked, do we have any opening day rituals? Do you have any opening day rituals? I don't. Do you? The only ritual I have is the week leading into the game. I will wear a different Tennessee polo shirt to work every day the week of the first game, as like a football season is here kind of tradition. So that week I'll wear a different Tennessee polo every day.
I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious. So about the only thing I do is during games, if I'm sitting a certain way and all of a sudden we get real hot and have multiple huge plays in a row, I will not flinch. I will maintain whatever that pose is until something
nobody move.
Yeah. Or if I'm standing a certain way, if my weight's on one foot over the other and all of a sudden 4 or 5 plays in a row, good things happen, I'll maintain that pose for as long as necessary.
It's for the benefit of the team.
Right.
Let's see. Mr. Jones said, if Nico wins the Heisman, what were his stats? Oh man, I don't know. A whole lot of touchdowns via the air and the ground. That's what it would be. That's a good question. I don't know. This is the question I want to come back to, and this is how we're, because it's an offensive show, even though we spent half the time talking about the defensive line. I wonder what we're going to talk about Sunday night.
I'm thinking the defensive line is going to be a deep topic.
Yeah. So I think this is a great question, and here's how I'm gonna word it. At the end of this season, so I'm changing it a little bit. At the end of this season, when we look back at this year's offense, how did it compare to 2022? Was it better? Was it worse? What do you think?
I got a big if.
Me too.
If Nico stays healthy, I believe this will be the best offense under Josh Heupel at Tennessee.
I 100% agree with that. 100% agree. The thing that made the 2022 offense so good was Hendon Hooker. His ability to control the offense, run it at the speed in which they ran it, his decision-making ability, that's what made that offense so good. Here's what's crazy about this year. You think about the weapons that Hendon had.
Yep.
Jalen Hyatt. I mean, he's still playing. He's tearing it up right now in the Giants fall camp. So, I mean, you think about the weapons he had. Brew McCoy. He's still here.
Javonte.
Yep. Javonte Payton. You think about those dudes. Tennessee has even more and arguably even more talented weapons now than he had.
And a better offensive line.
And a better offensive line. That's exactly right. So all of the pieces are there for Nico. And now to help him out even more, they're putting a microphone in his ear or a receiver in his ear. A receiver for a microphone so that a communication device. There is a communication device in his ear. Literally, he is being set up for total success. If he can play average, Tennessee's in the playoffs this year. All he has to do is hit open receivers and make good. I'm gonna say this: make non-catastrophic decisions.
Yep.
If he can do that, Tennessee will be in the playoff.
Yeah.
It's really that simple.
Just take care of the ball and spread it around.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And slide instead of taking big hits. That's all he's got to do. Those things Rustin mentioned, and sliding. Mississippi Vol said, I have a Nike orange, white, smoky gray, and black jerseys with cloth numbers. On game day, I wear the one the team is wearing that week. Oh, that's cool. He said just normal clothes on the off week. I like that. That's cool right there. That's a cool tradition. I like that a lot. Sam said, do you believe that with the running clock rules, I think there was more to that question. He said, the only thing I don't see being as good as the running back position, I don't see Mr. Wright. Okay, I get that. So, but if we go back to 2022, Jabari Small was actually the number one running back in 2022.
Yep.
Jalen Wright was the number 2 tailback. And after that season is when we had the infamous Jalen Wright post on Instagram saying it's a business decision. He's leaving. And then all of a sudden, no, he gets a really good NIL deal. How about that? And he came back. But but I get that. I totally understand.
I think everybody's going to be pleasantly surprised by Deshaun Bishop.
Yeah, they got 2 talented dudes back there for sure this year. And let's be honest, if we go back to last year's Kentucky game, Dylan Sampson may be the reason why we won that game. Dylan Sampson had a phenomenal fourth quarter last year against Kentucky, including a crucially important third down run halfway through the fourth quarter. That I totally get it, because even as I was saying what I was saying about the two teams, I was thinking, well, running back might have been better in 2022. But I mean, the thing is, the running back situation in 2023 was essentially the exact same as 2022. It was just Jalen Wright had gotten even better in 2023.
Yeah.
Mr. Jones with a Joe Milton reference here. So Joe Milton is Mr. Jones' favorite Tennessee player in history.
Don't turn on ESPN tonight. He trucked Eagles linebacker in their game tonight. You're probably not going to want to see that.
Oh, man, this is fun stuff. We love this, man. We love getting to talk with you guys. So this has been our preview of the offense. It's people might watch this and say, all these Tennessee homers. I mean, they got orange colored glasses on. We really don't for this, actually. Like, I mean, this is just, we're just being honest. This is you have every right to be excited about this Tennessee offense if you're a Tennessee fan, in my humble opinion. This is potentially a great outlook for us. What were you going to say?
If people question if we're homers or not, tune in Sunday and listen to me break down the safeties. There will be no doubt after that segment.
Well, hey, Mina Lucky's cheering on Joe Milton too. That's what I'm talking about. We hope everybody has a fantastic weekend ahead of you. I do want to put a plug in. Sunday night, yes, we are going to be talking about the defense. We might talk about the defensive line. I don't know. They might make an appearance. But I do want to put a plug in. Everybody needs to tune in Sunday night, because I'll be revealing the college football pick'em challenge contest on Sunday night as well. So we did it last year. It was a lot of fun. We're going to do it again this year. So the reason we're doing it Sunday is because we always do that. It's the first week of the season, you get 2 weeks to pick the games. So that's why we did that. It gives you 2 weeks. Every other week, it's just that week. So
I'm going to need 2 weeks for that Hawaii Delaware State game. There's a lot of analysis that's going to have to happen before that one.
I understand. I can't. The Delaware State Hornets, isn't that what
Fighting
they were?
Hornets.
Yeah, that's it. If you wanted a great breakdown of the Hornets, you can watch our last show. We had a kind of a detour on that, but everybody tune in Sunday night, because it'll be a lot of fun talking about the defense, but then also you'll get to hear about the college football pick'em challenge. If Carl's watching, Carl almost won it last year. Fun times, man. Fun times. So we hope all of you have a great evening. Hope you have a good weekend ahead of you, and we look forward to seeing you Sunday night. Go Vols.